March 3, 1952, 6:47 a.m. Johnny Moretti's body swayed in the morning wind 200 feet above the East River. The crane operator who found him would never work the docks again, some sights you don't recover from. Moretti had been dead for maybe 3 hours. His hands were tied behind his back with longshoreman's rope. His mouth was stuffed with dock receipts, his own dock receipts. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Around his neck was a sign written in dockworkers' chalk. The waterfront remembers who it belongs to. Albert Anastasia's message was clear. But what the newspapers didn't report, what the police never figured out, was how Anastasia knew. Because Johnny Moretti hadn't just stolen a few shipping contracts. He'd orchestrated the most sophisticated takeover attempt in New York waterfront history. And he'd done it so carefully, so quietly, that even Anastasia's own underboss didn't see it coming, until Anastasia did. To understand what happened on that crane, you need to understand what the Brooklyn waterfront meant in 1952. It wasn't just about loading ships. The docks controlled everything, every imported cigarette, every crate of whiskey, every container of stolen goods that came through New York passed through Brooklyn's piers. And the man who controlled the piers controlled millions. Albert Anastasia, the Lord High Executioner, had run the Brooklyn docks since 1948. He'd taken them from Vincent Mangano in a way that left Mangano's body unfound to this day. Anastasia didn't just control the longshoremen's union, he was the union. Every hiring boss answered to him, every ship that docked paid tribute, every cargo container that fell off a truck went through his network. By 1952, Anastasia was pulling in $200,000 a month from the waterfront. That's $2.3 million in today's money, every single month. But there was a problem brewing that Anastasia didn't see. His name was Johnny Moretti. Moretti wasn't Italian, he was Sicilian, which in the mob hierarchy meant something different. His family came from the same village as Lucky Luciano, and that connection had protected him for years. He'd started as a dock worker in 1938, worked his way up to hiring boss by 1945, and by 1950 he was managing Pier 7 in Red Hook, one of the most profitable stretches of waterfront in Brooklyn. Anastasia trusted Moretti. That was his first mistake. Because while Anastasia was focused on expansion, on taking over the Hoboken docks, on muscling into the Fulton fish market, Moretti was quietly building a shadow empire right under his nose. It started small. In January 1951, Moretti began hiring his own people, not Anastasia's people, his people, cousins from Sicily who'd just arrived at Ellis Island, brothers-in-law who needed work, men who owed Moretti favors, not Anastasia. Within 6 months, 40% of the longshoremen on Pier 7 answered to Moretti. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Moretti first, Anastasia second. Then Moretti made his real move. He went to the shipping companies directly. June 15, 1951. Moretti walked into the offices of Clarkson Shipping Lillwood, one of the biggest import companies using Brooklyn's docks. He sat down with Thomas Clarkson himself and made an offer. "You're paying Anastasia 8% on every container. I can get you the same service for 5%. Clarkson was skeptical. "Anastasia finds out I'm talking to you, I'm finished." Moretti smiled. "Anastasia doesn't need to know. You keep paying him his 8%. I give you a rebate of 3% in cash. Everybody wins." It was brilliant. The shipping companies kept paying Anastasia, so he never saw a drop in revenue. But they were getting kickbacks from Moretti, so they started routing more ships to Pier 7, the pier Moretti controlled. More ships meant more jobs, which meant Moretti could hire more of his own people, which gave him more control. Within 8 months, Moretti had secret deals with 6 major shipping companies. Pier 7 was handling 60% more cargo than any other pier in Brooklyn. And Anastasia thought it was because Moretti was just a really good manager. By December 1951, Moretti controlled the hiring on 4 piers, 7, 9, 11, and 13. That was 1/3 of Brooklyn's commercial waterfront. He had 200 men on his payroll who were loyal to him personally. He was taking in $30,000 a month off his kickback scheme, building his own war chest. And he was getting cocky. February 10, 1952. Moretti met with Salvatore Sally Burns Granello, a capo in the Genovese family. They met in a social club on Mulberry Street, far from Anastasia's territory. I need backing, Moretti said. I'm ready to make my move. Sally Burns poured espresso. You're talking about going against Albert Anastasia. You understand what that means? I control a third of the waterfront already. Give me 6 more months and I'll control half. Then we move. Quick, clean. Anastasia's old. He's distracted. The Mangano hit was 4 years ago. People forget. Sally Burns leaned back. The Genovese family doesn't forget, and neither does Anastasia. But he didn't say no. What Moretti didn't know was that the waiter who served their espresso was named Carmine, and Carmine's brother-in-law was a dock worker on Pier 6, and that dock worker owed his job to Albert Anastasia. 3 days after the Mulberry Street meeting, Anastasia sat in his office at the Riviera nightclub on Flatbush Avenue. A man named Anthony Tough Tony Anastasio, Albert's brother and his underboss on the waterfront, sat across from him. You hear anything strange about Pier 7? Anastasia asked. Tough Tony shook his head. It's performing good. Moretti's doing a solid job. Too good? Tough Tony paused. That was the thing about Albert Anastasia. He asked questions that made you rethink everything you thought you knew. What did you hear? Tough Tony asked. Carmine says Moretti's meeting with the Genovese family. Says Moretti's talking about making moves. Tough Tony's face hardened. I'll handle it. Tonight. Anastasia held up a bizarre hand. Not yet. First, we find out how deep this goes. For the next 2 weeks, Anastasia did what he did best. He watched. He listened. He put people in places where information flowed. A new hiring boss showed up on Pier 7. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. A man named Freddie Conti, who'd worked for Anastasia since 1946. Moretti didn't know Freddie reported everything back to Anastasia. An accountant at Clarkson Shipping suddenly started having money problems, gambling debts, the kind of debts that made a man willing to share ledgers if those debts disappeared. A docker on Pier 9 got arrested for assault. Anastasia got him out. The docker became very talkative. Within 10 days, Anastasia had the full picture. The kickback scheme, the 200 loyal men, the meeting with Sally Burns, all of it. February 28, 1952. Anastasia called a meeting, not with Moretti, with the 6 shipping company executives who'd been taking Moretti's kickbacks. They met at a warehouse in Sunset Park. All 6 executives showed up because when Albert Anastasia invites you somewhere, you go. Anastasia stood in front of them, hands in his pockets, voice quiet. I know about the rebates. I know Johnny's been paying you back 3% of my cut. The executives went pale. Here's what's going to happen, Anastasia continued. You're going to keep doing business with Pier 7. You're going to keep paying Johnny his rebates. But you're going to tell me every conversation you have with him, every ship you route, every dollar that changes hands. One executive found his voice. And if we refuse? Anastasia smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Then tomorrow morning, your warehouse is burned. Your ships get delayed in customs for months. Your cargo containers fall into the East River. Your insurance premiums triple. Should I continue? No one refused. For the next 72 hours, Moretti thought he was still operating in secret, but every move he made, Anastasia knew about before he finished making it. March 2, 1952, 11:30 p.m., Johnny Moretti got a call at his apartment in Carroll Gardens. It was one of his captains on Pier 7. We got a problem. Container 447 is missing, the one from the Lisbon shipment. Container 447 held 200 cases of stolen Portuguese wine worth $50,000. Moretti's cut would have been $15,000. I'll be right there, Moretti said. He should have been suspicious. Containers didn't just disappear from locked piers, but greed makes men stupid. And Moretti was thinking about the money, not the trap. He arrived at Pier 7 at midnight. The pier was empty except for a single crane operator in the control booth and 2 men Moretti recognized, dock workers from his own crew. Where's the container? Moretti asked. One of the men pointed toward the far end of the pier. Crane operator says he saw it moved near the edge. Moretti walked out onto the pier, past the stacked containers toward the water. The East River reflected the lights of the Brooklyn Bridge half a mile north. That's when he heard the footsteps behind him. He turned. 5 men emerged from behind the containers. Moretti recognized all of them. They were his men, or he'd thought they were. Tough Tony Anastasio stepped out last. "Johnny," Tony said quietly, "my brother wants to talk." Moretti's hand went toward his jacket, but one of the men grabbed him first. They zip-tied his hands behind his back with dock wire. They walked him to the crane at the end of the pier. The operator, Freddie Conte, Anastasia's man, was waiting in the control booth. Albert Anastasia stepped out from the crane's shadow. He was holding a dock worker's clipboard with receipts attached. $200,000, Anastasia said, showing Moretti the receipts. "That's how much you skimmed from me over 14 months. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. These are your receipts, your handwriting, your signature." Moretti's voice shook. "Albert, I can explain. You met with Sally Burns," Anastasia continued. "You were planning to take half the waterfront. Then what? Kill me? Push me out?" "No, I swear." Anastasia stuffed the receipts into Moretti's mouth. "The waterfront isn't yours to take, Johnny. It never was." He nodded to Tough Tony. They tied the longshoreman's rope around Moretti's neck. The other end was already attached to the crane's hook. Anastasia looked up at the crane operator. "Take him up!" The crane's engine roared to life. The hook lifted. Moretti's feet left the ground. He struggled, but dock rope doesn't break, and zip ties don't slip. The crane swung out over the water, 200 feet in the air. Then it stopped. Anastasia watched for a moment, then turned and walked off the pier. By the time he reached his car, Johnny Moretti was dead. The crane operator left him hanging there. When the morning shift arrived at 6:30 a.m., they found him swaying in the wind with the chalk sign around his neck. The police investigation went nowhere. No witnesses, no evidence. The crane operator had quit and disappeared. The dock workers saw nothing. Even the shipping executives claimed ignorance. The message, though, that was received loud and clear. Within a week, every kickback scheme on the waterfront ended. Every shadow deal died. The longshoremen who'd been loyal to Moretti suddenly remembered they'd always worked for Anastasia. Salvatore Granello sent word through intermediaries. The Genovese family had never seriously considered backing Moretti's play. They were just listening. Listening wasn't a crime. Anastasia accepted the explanation. But the Genovese family never tried to move on the Brooklyn waterfront again. Albert Anastasia controlled the docks for another 5 years, until his own murder in 1957, shot to death in a barber's chair at the Park Sheraton Hotel. But that's another story. Johnny Moretti's body was cut down from the crane on March 4, 1952. He was buried in a cemetery in Queens. No flowers, no ceremony, just a wooden box and a hole in the... And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Ground. His wife and 3 kids moved back to Sicily within a month. The crane that killed him kept working Brooklyn's piers for another 20 years. Dock workers called it Johnny's crane, though never loud enough for a boss to hear. And every man who worked the waterfront learned the same lesson. You can steal cargo, you can steal money, you can even steal another man's woman. But you never steal Albert Anastasia's docks, not if you want to stay on the right side of the ground.